Video streaming at WGNSradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on a beautiful August Thursday morning. Our show this morning is going to be different. We're going to be going back to an earlier visit some 2 years and 2 months ago with Mr. Dick Wooten. Dick was a gentleman that just totally inspired me. He passed away 2 weeks ago, and this is a special tribute from me personally to Dick Wooten. Dick was born in North Carolina, joined the Army, and was sent to Korea, where they assigned him to work in one of the most difficult areas in explosives. For 50 years, he owned a glass and mirror store in Middle Tennessee. But most important, he was a man of nature. He spent a tremendous amount of time canoeing on all levels of rivers, all levels of waterfalls, and what have you. But what was really key, over his lifetime, Dick inspired hundreds, if not thousands, of young people to love the outdoors, including canoeing and hiking. So this program, which was done in June of 2022, highlights our visit with Dick Wooten, and we hope you enjoy it, as I am looking forward to it. We are very, very pleased to have with us a young gentleman who will be sharing his secrets for being a young gentleman for his years, Mr. Dick Wooten from Nashville. Dick, let's first learn about you. You were born, we won't say the time, but you were born 6 months before the great crash of the stock market on Wall Street, which would have been what year?
Bill, I don't remember that at all. The stock market crashed without any help from me.
Well,
but I was 6 years...
Or 6 months.
6 months.
In 1929. So Dick will be celebrating next March his 94th birthday. But he's an inspiration. Let's first find out a little bit about you. You were born where?
Well, I was born actually in Jackson, Michigan. My parents were ran hotels. My father ran a hotel in Jackson, Michigan. But I only lived there till I was about 5 years old. Then went to Gastonia, North Carolina.
Where's that near?
Gastonia, well, Charlotte is a suburb of Gastonia.
That's what they say.
About 20 miles from Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. How large of a hotel, do you remember?
Oh, I don't know, 100 rooms in a small town.
And you grew up there in North Carolina, went to school?
North Carolina State, engineering in Raleigh, North Carolina.
And they had a big Raleigh for you when you graduated.
Oh, come
Okay. All right. And most of your life professionally, what had you been doing?
Bill, I was an engineer. I was a ceramic engineer, and they make pots, and they also make glass. So I was a glass engineer, and when there were an opening came for an engineer at the new Ford glass plant being built in Nashville, I thought, what a great opportunity to come to a lovely town like Nashville.
And were you one of the first engineers that came when the plant was being designed and built?
I was the third person to be hired for the particular plant here in Nashville. And of course, 70 years later, the plant is still there, but different owners.
And I'm sure a different way of putting glass in your windshield.
Very, very different from what it was 70 years ago.
Well, why I've invited Dick to have a visit, a conversation with me, is that throughout his life, and one could say perhaps it's contributed to his longevity, but I do know it has contributed to his happiness of life, is that he's been very active in the outdoors, very active in many different types of activities. And I think this morning you're going to find it, like I find it in our many conversations, just how encouraging and inspiration and motivating it is. So Dick, let's begin. If you were to identify all of your outdoor activities, if there is a favorite, or if there is one you spend more time and opportunity with, what was it?
Adventure is a spice of life. Finding a way to do something that is really adventurous, whether it be biking, whether it be hiking, spelunking, climbing mountains, or riding bicycles. All of them are fun to do, and they're adventurous.
Let's start with canoeing and rafting, because I know you've done a lot of that, and where you've canoed or rafted, rivers, gone up to what, 4 levels or whatever the steps may be, excitement, unpredictable.
Canoeing is a great sport. Kayaking came from Germany after the Second World War. And when I came to Nashville, I enjoyed boating. So I got a Old Town wood canvas boat, secondhand, and thought this would be a great way to see the wonderful lakes of Tennessee. There was an organization that was formed, or being formed, in the early 1960s. And Bob Miller started an organization, and I give him credit for it, Tennessee Scenic Rivers Association, TSRA. And it was in the early 60s that they came along with something in the newspaper. There's going to be an adventurous trip on a wild river. The wild river was the Collins. And I took a wood canvas canoe, which is not a very good idea because wood canvas and the rocky rivers of Tennessee just bit holes in my wood canvas canoe.
It's not a friendly relationship.
Absolutely not. So they came along and technology began to take over, and they began to make boats out of something stronger. So ABS plastic and fiberglass was something that the boat was made out of. So I bought a fiberglass canoe and began to run the rivers. Now, adventure. Whitewater canoeing is a wonderful sport. It is adventurous as it can be. And as the canoeing began to learn technology, different ways that boats were made. The wood canvas canoe, aluminum canoes, and then fiberglass canoes. And finally you get to something called a plastic boat that would be almost impervious to being hurt running a river.
And tell me about the various levels of hitting the waves. Are they numbered to the most difficult? What was the most difficult that you ever faced on canoeing?
Oh, that's a good question, Bill. The difficulty of rapids is from 1 to 6.
6, okay.
A Class 6 river is so dangerous that there is a risk, or should be. And
Are there any in Tennessee?
6s, yes, there would be. Have I ever run one? No.
What's the highest you've run?
I think 3 and perhaps a light 4. But it is subjective. It is not something you can look at and say that is a certain degree of difficulty. Back in the 1960s, there were very few people that really knew much about canoeing in Tennessee. And when the TSRA came along and began to say, and the TSRA was really the canoe club of Nashville, as well as being a statewide organization for the preservation of the beautiful rivers.
Do you have to operate under certain rules and regulations that the state or any regulatory agency puts forth of safety in canoeing?
Well, when we started out canoeing, I would not even put a life jacket on. And the state didn't seem to care about whether, at that time, that was about 60 years ago.
Was there much loss of life?
There were
remember?
people getting drowned, yes. We had a river called the Chattooga River, and that was a really difficult one. That was in North Georgia.
Okay.
And yes, people were drowned, and I would not even put a helmet on most of the time because, oh my goodness, you're chicken if you put a helmet on. But as I began to learn more about it, and particularly since my hair was kind of falling out, I found out that a helmet protected my
What hair you had left?
yes.
Do you normally, or did you normally canoe alone? Did you have 1, 2, or 3 people on the canoe?
Canoeing alone was not a good idea. Really, we were an organization, TSRA, that was a group. Frequently, 12, 14 boats would be going together for mutual support
And safety.
and safety, yes. And we even began to wear life jackets. Now, the state came along eventually and required the use, or at least the carrying, of life jackets in the boat. These life jackets at the time were very, very bad. They were supposed to take care of you if you fell over in the lake. But when you're running wild rivers, and the rivers, you want something that is close to your body, and we designed life jackets that were really white water life jackets.
Did you have a favorite lake or river, looking back, either for rafting or for canoeing in Tennessee? We won't go the rest of the world because you've been all over the world, but literally in Tennessee, if you said there was one lake or one river that stands out, that was my golden destination.
Well, I used to run the Ocoee River near Chattanooga. The Ocoee was just the most wonderful river to run, and it really wasn't difficult. Rafts began to take over, but lots and lots of kayaks and canoes began to get interested in the Ocoee. So I would take off on a Friday afternoon, pack some things in my truck, and would go over and run the Ocoee River maybe 4 or 5 times during the weekend, and then get back to Nashville to go to work.
I have to ask a silly question.
Oh, no,
And this,
silly.
Oh, this is like bicycling. We were just talking off the air. If you're canoeing downstream and following the rapids and following the movement, how do you get back upstream?
Well, on the Ocoee River, I would hitchhike back.
Okay.
I would put my boat in, and we would go downstream, and then I would take a paddle with me, walk over onto the road, and would hitchhike back to the put-in. That's at the top.
And everybody was very supportive.
Everybody would see somebody standing there with a life jacket on and a canoe paddle in their hand, and most times it would be 2 or 3 minutes wait at the least.
I have to deviate a little bit, and then we'll be getting back to this, but I always remember the story of how young were you when you left home in North Carolina and hitchhiked to the Smokies?
First time I hitchhiked over from Hendersonville,
North
Carolina, to the Great Smoky Mountains, I was about 14 years old. And at that time, well, okay, so I hitchhiked. I didn't get my parents to drive me over there. I simply got out on the highway, had a backpack on. People were just great. This would be the late 1930s, early 1940s.
Can you imagine that today if a parent was asked by their 14-year-old, Dad, I'd like to hitchhike from here to Asheville, North Carolina. Is that okay? I don't know what the parent's answer would be, but I know what my answer would be.
Well, my parents were very understanding. I just say I'm going to go to the Smokies, and or else I'm going to get on my bicycle in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and drive over to ride over to Pisgah Mountain, camp out over there, and come back the next day. Okay, go do it.
That's fantastic. And we'll be talking more about your bicycling and your hiking as we go later on in the program. But the key thing here is to see a young man at 93 years of age, and I mean young man mentally, physically, who has built his life with the fact that while he'd be working during the day as an engineer for Ford Motor Company in the glass appliance section, he also gave a great amount of time and dedication, passion, and commitment to being in the outdoors. And we usually take for granted the outdoors of Tennessee and the outdoors of the South here in terms of what is available. And you will be hearing a history of what's available in so many different activities. We're visiting with Dick Wooten, young man who is a young man on the move much of his life. We'll be right back.
This is Adam Tipton with the Rutherford County Farm Bureau. We would like to show our appreciation to all of our Farm Bureau members by inviting you to our annual membership meeting tonight at the Lane Agri Park, 315 John Rice Boulevard. We will start serving barbecue with all the trimmings at 5 p.m. with the meeting to follow. For information, call 615-893-1213 or visit our website, rcfarmbureau.org.
Support First Shot at Autumn at the Alley. It will be held at Saddle Woods Farm on Franklin Road in Murfreesboro on Wednesday, September 25th from 6 until 9 p.m. It supports First Shot STEM Academy and Academic All-Stars initiatives. The night is a fantastic event with unique tastings from various spirit brands and great wines and food from the Alley on Main. Top the night off with a fabulous silent auction. Go to firstshottn.org for more information and see you at Autumn at the Alley September 25th.
All right, guys, it's Scott. If you're feeling tired, lacking motivation and drive, gaining weight, or noticing a loss of muscle mass, these could all be signs of low testosterone. Don't wait. Find out now. At Low T Center here in Murfreesboro on Medical Center Parkway, they make it easy to get your levels checked. And with their on-site lab, you'll get those results back in about 25 minutes. Low T Center is not a typical doctor's office. Their physicians specialize in treating low testosterone with customized therapy, or TRT, for each patient. The experts at Low T Center have over a decade of experience helping patients achieve life-changing results. And most health insurance is accepted for treatment. For established patients with stable T levels, they also offer a convenient physician-monitored self-inject treatment plan that ships directly to your home each month without the need to come into the office for weekly visits. And at Low T Center, you can also get your health evaluated for treatment with prescription GLP-1 weight loss medications. Yep, you can lose weight. Get back to your best. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment today. That's lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's health care.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by AmeriCare Pest Control and the law offices of John Day.
I've got pests, bees, buzzing, rodents running all through my house. Ants chewing wood, and look, there's a mouse. I'm overrun with pests, but you're gonna be sure, safe and secure. It's the last rites for those pests. Call the best of the best to get rid of your pests.
893-7111. AmeriCare Services Incorporated. Call us today. 893-7111.
Let's check those WGNS Good Neighbor events. The Red Cross is critically low on blood, really dangerously low. Please give the gift of life. The Murfreesboro Red Cross is at 501 Memorial Boulevard. Call them at 800-RED-CROSS and make an appointment to give blood at a time that fits your schedule. Right now is when you paint your bowls for Habitat for Humanity's Cookin' to Build. All you do is go by Color Me Mine in the Avenue of Murfreesboro, and they're doing it now. Oh, and Cookin' to Build is November 2nd. Head over to Color Me Mine in the Avenue. And some great plays. Something Rotten over at the Art Center of Cannon County in neighboring Woodbury. Here in Murfreesboro at the Center for the Arts, it's the classic Arsenic and Old Lace. Don't throw away Old Glory. Bring your tattered American flag to WGNS and let the girls from BSA Troop 2019 at Trinity United Methodist Church retire it with dignity. Plus, We also recycle Bibles. From News Radio WGNS, those are Good Neighbor Events.
Rutherford weather.
We'll see sunny skies here this afternoon with a high in the mid-90s. For tonight, partly cloudy, a low near 75. Friday, chance for rain and storms, a high of 93. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS.
Currently, it's 72.
WGNS is powered by Middle Tennessee Electric, who offers energy-saving tips during the hot summer months. Minimize use of stoves and ovens which raise kitchen temperatures. Opt for grilling, slow cooker, or microwave. Find more at mte.com/myenergyplan.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Hi, Bill Krause again. We're having a wonderful visit with Mr. Dick Wooten, a dear friend, and Dick Wooten, an inspiration to me. 93 years of age, but age is only a chronology. It's the person and what the person has done in their lives and what the person looks upon as priority. And much of Dick's life, so many years, has been in the outdoors active. And while we talked about rafting and canoeing the first part of this show, Dick also has been hiking. And I think the hiking aspect, and hiking right in our backyard in the Smokies, and hiking in other parts of our beautiful United States and even worldwide, has been a major part of Dick's life. So, Dick, tell us how you got into hiking. Did you just, when you were 6 months old and the great crash occurred, you started hiking out to the stock market and you said, Merrill Lynch, I want to turn in my stock. I'm 6 months old and the market is crashing. So, Dick, what got you into hiking?
Hiking was an adventure. It was a means of getting out, seeing things, going places. The Smoky Mountains are one of the most beautiful places to hike anywhere, and I mean in the world. And I've hiked all around the world. Smoky Mountains, I've hiked about 2,000 miles in and around just the Smoky Mountains. The Appalachian Trail runs right through the Smoky Mountains. Hiking the Appalachian Trail there, it's adventure, it's a sport, and it's fun doing.
Tell us about the many times you went out to the top of Mount LeBlanc. I'm sure many of our listeners are well aware of the lodge up there, and you hike up there and everything about it, but you've got to talk about Cumberland Jack and the book and everything about your hiking up to Mount LeBlanc.
Well, at the top of Mount LeConte.
It's one of the highest mountains in the Smokies, isn't it?
It is. It's one of the pretty close, 6,000 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
There was a group called the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club. Well, I'd become a member of the Smoky Mountain Hiking Club, and there was a fellow named Jack Huff, was the manager of a little, kind of like a B&B at the top of Mount LeConte. There was a fellow named Mr. Adams, back in the 1930s, was a custodian, and I met Mr. Adams, and he had a dog named Cumberland Jack.
Well, you remember what kind of dog?
It was some kind of a German Shepherd.
Shepherd, okay.
And it was a pretty big dog, but Mr. Adams had been hired to interest people in what was to eventually become the Smoky Mountain National Park. In the 1930s, it was not a park, but it was still a very beautiful area. So there were people in Knoxville who were very interested in seeing a national park be formed near Nashville.
Or Knoxville.
No, I mean
Knoxville.
near Knoxville.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Adams was hired to go up there to live and to build a cabin at the top of Mount LeConte. He had this dog, Cumberland Jack. Cumberland Jack had backpacks. And when Mr. Adams needed something, he would send Cumberland Jack down the trail by himself to a little grocery store. And the gentleman running the grocery store reads and says what Mr. Adams needs at the top of the mountain, puts it in Cumberland Jack's backpacks, and back goes the dog to the top of the mountain. Cumberland Jack was an interesting dog. Mr. Adams was a very interesting person.
And he wrote a book.
Mr. Adams wrote a lovely book about Cumberland Jack, and when I had the pleasure of meeting Mr. Adams, he autographed the book about Cumberland Jack.
Now, you had hiked up to Mount LeConte many a time and stayed over at the facility up there. As you said, it's like a B&B, and as I understand, delicious meals up there, kind of all home cooked, of course, all brought by the dog at the time. And now I think, what do they bring back on horses? Or donkeys? Mules? They bring the material up?
At one time, they were using llamas.
Llamas?
Llamas.
Wow.
Absolutely. A very docile animal. It was used to backpack up to the LeConte Lodge, what eventually became a major tourist attraction. Now, there's also an Adirondack shelter up at Mount LeConte, and I've spent many a night up there, even in the middle of the winter. A lovely place to go to.
What's hiking up there in December and January and February? Are you having to wear snowshoes?
Well, not necessarily, Bill. There's a lot of snow in the Smoky Mountains, of course. But many times there would be beautiful trails, not any snow at all. You could walk up there and be perfectly comfortable in a t-shirt, but we'd always be prepared for really low temperatures. And I think one night I spent up there, it was 9 degrees below zero.
Wow. You weren't in a t-shirt on that one.
No, absolutely not.
I understand.
But sleeping at that temperature in an Adirondack shelter is quite an experience, but an adventure.
Which is the bottom line description of what you are sharing with us this beautiful morning. When you talk about weather, are there times when you're hiking in mountains like in the Smokies where the weather can change almost at the flash of a second?
Absolutely. On the Appalachian Trail, which runs from Newfound Gap going northward, there are 3 Adirondack shelters, roughly 12 to 14 miles apart. I'd hiked out between Christmas and New Year's with a group, and we were at the 3rd shelter out from Newfound Gap. The weather began to look very ominous. I mean, it was beginning to snow that evening. And I told our group of about 7 or 8 people that were with me, we're moving at dawn the next morning. Soon as daybreak, we're going to go to Newfound Gap. We started out beginning to snow. As we hiked toward Newfound Gap, it was snowing. By the time we got to our cars at Newfound Gap, I'm going to say there was 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground.
Wow.
There's nothing to do but get in the car and go to Gatlinburg.
And hope to slip and slide down the hill.
We did it. It had to be done.
Absolutely.
When we got to the barrier, they'd already shut so nobody could cross at that time, the Smokies. We had to open. Fortunately, it wasn't locked. We could get out and go home.
I think it's important to say, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of your hiking, a lot of your tours, I think even a lot of your rafting were done with young kids. You took young kid scout groups?
I did. That was
Tell me about that.
Well, there was a group called the Explorer Scouts. Mm-hmm. Explorers were rather adventurous people that liked to do adventurous things, and so I occasionally would take some of the 16, 18-year-old kids out and show them how to canoe or how to hike do things like that.
Was there survival items included in that discussion?
Well, that was part of it. I thought it was fun to spend the night out in the wilderness, and that's basically what we were doing.
And speaking about spending the night or walking the day in the wilderness, experience with running into nature's living things. Did you run into nature's living things?
There are bears in the Smokies. I told you, I think earlier, that I hiked at 14 over, waked up in the morning at the Adirondack Shelter in the Smokies.
At 14 years of age?
Absolutely. Something was snuffling around my feet. And I turned the flashlight on. There was a black bear. And the black bear was as startled as I was. Mm-hmm. He or she took off in one direction, and I crawled as far back into that shelter as I could possibly do.
What do you say to a bear when it wakes you up?
You don't barely say nothing to
Very good, very good. I'm glad you bore on that one.
Yes.
Ever run into mountain lions, coyotes?
No, occasionally there would be, there were quite a few timber rattlers. Okay. And I ran into several timber rattlers, but they were pretty, I didn't bother them, and they didn't bother me. The bears are probably the only thing that really could have been a problem.
In hiking, is your elevation high enough that you don't get ticks, or a tick's a fairly serious issue?
Truly, there's no, I've never had a problem with that, Bill.
Okay. When you were hiking, normally, and of course there's probably no standard to this, but is there a normal amount of miles you would like to achieve in a particular day before you set out for the second day?
The goal of my hiking, particularly in the Smokies or the Smoky areas, was not necessarily to make distance, but rather to enjoy where you are at the time. And that was the goal, simply to be there, to be in nature, and enjoy what you're doing. Now, I'm sure there are many people that want to hike the entire Appalachian Trail. Never had a real desire to want to do that. I enjoyed hiking the adventure of where you are and what you're doing and enjoying it.
And breathing the fresh air, hearing the sounds of nature, and you paced yourself. I'm assuming you paced yourself so that you could stop and enjoy and not say, oh, we're 3.6 miles away from our goal, we better make it before sundown.
Well, now, I've hiked with some people who really wanted to make time, and I hiked with a very fine hiker, Bob Brown. He's quite a naturalist and outdoors person, and we would get up, fix breakfast. Bob would fix breakfast of a little bit of cold cereal, and he'd be gone. I wouldn't see him again till night. But I would fix a nice breakfast of bacon and eggs. Yes, I carried them. And had a nice breakfast. I'd catch up with Bob later in the day.
And he was hungry by then by just having his cold cereal, I assume. When you hike, you know in advance, I'm sure, the rigidity or how rough that hike may be or how easy it may be. Is it like the river rafting with a point up to 6? Do you identify the ranges of difficult, fairly even, easy hiking?
There are classes in mountain climbing, which is a great sport to do. Also, climbing 14,000-foot mountains in Colorado is equally good to climbing a 6,000-foot mountain in the Smoky Mountains. It's a different form of adventure.
How do you manage your breathing when you're at 14,000 feet elevation?
Not a problem, really.
So the high elevation, does it have you hike at a different rate, a different pace?
When you are hiking at 14,000 feet in Colorado, you're breathing a great deal more, I'm not going to say difficult, it was hard to do. And naturally, if you have the time to do it, you can acclimate yourself to high altitude. Now, there's not really high altitude in the Smokies, but definitely out west. And when you hike out there, it is certainly smart to acclimate before you climb a 14,000-foot mountain.
Well, I know whenever there's been Olympic Games in cities that are a mile high, 5,000 plus feet, the athletes are going under a different type of training to acclimate their endurance in a higher elevation. So that's why I was wondering, 14,000 feet, do you get out of breath sooner? Do you walk slower?
I would say yes, you would do that, because there's definitely less. The higher you go up, the less oxygen there is per cubic centimeter than there is down at sea level. The higher you get, it's more difficult to do it. Some people have a very difficult time. I've even heard people say they got altitude sickness in the Smokies. Well, okay.
Could be. This is Bill Krause on the beautiful Thursday morning roundtable, having a wonderful visit and conversation with Dick Wooten. We've gone over hiking, we've been over canoeing, and when we come back for our third and final segment, we're going to be talking about bicycling, another one of the many ventures and passions that our friend Dick has done over the many years to make him a young 93. We'll be right back.
1 in 4 Americans have a disability. I'm one of them. I'm also a working mom who cares deeply about making sure every child with a disability thrives by getting their access needs met. We've got a trusted ally by our side. Easter Seals provides children and families the foundation for lifelong success through early learning programs, skills training, and prep for college and career. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours. Join us at easterseals.com.
Are you the parent of a 2 to 7-year-old? Listen closely for an exciting free radio offer. By now, you've probably heard of ABC Mouse, the Parents' Choice Award-winning online learning program that's actually changing the lives of early learners everywhere.
ABC Mouse is like a little one-on-one teacher. It has helped her so much.
Right now, we're offering a special radio promo to try it free for a month, but you have to go to abcmouse.com/radio to claim your free month. That's abcmouse.com/radio.
Sponsored by Age of Learning.
Hi, this is Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates. You might know me as the voice of the Blue Raiders, but I want to be your trusted advisor in real estate. Whether you're buying or selling, it's time to choose Chip. Do you have a growing family and need to upsize? Are you an empty nester now and need to downsize? Are you thinking of selling your current home but just worried you can't find something else? Well, it's time to choose Chip. I'm looking to be your trusted advisor in real estate. I'm Chip Walters with Exit Realty Bob Lamb & Associates.
This is Kim Dunaway from Sunshine Nutrition Center. You hear me on Monday mornings at 7:20 talking about how to lead a healthier lifestyle. We carry supplements, personal care, and grocery items at both our Murfreesboro and Smyrna locations, family owned and operated since 1989.
At Bud's Tire Pros, we sell all major brands of tires, and we invite you to stop by today for that next set of tires. Or maybe you need us to check out your vehicle before you head out of town. We offer everything from brakes to batteries, alignments, and more. No appointments necessary, just stop on by.
I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
You know the value of a good neighbor, someone you can trust, someone who looks out for you. And when it comes to Medicare, it's good to have someone on your side. That's where Senior Financial Group comes in. We're Tennesseans, just like you, and we've partnered with United Healthcare, a trusted name in health insurance. Together, we'll guide you through your Medicare options. We will compare plans, answer your questions, and ensure you get the most of your Medicare benefits with United Healthcare. Don't navigate Medicare alone. Call Senior Financial Group at 800-690-0251 or visit sfgmedicare.com for a free plan review today.
Everywhere you go in this area, you see beautiful brick mailboxes from LaGreen's Masonry. Visit their website and see their variety. LaGreensMasonry.com. A family business you can trust. LaGreen's Masonry.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, and worldwide at WGNSradio.com.
Hi there, Bill Krause again here on the Roundtable on a gorgeous Thursday morning. And we're having a wonderful chat with Dick Wooten, who has spent a significant portion of his 93 years outdoors on hiking and bicycling and canoeing and anything else you want to do in the outdoors. And what's so impressive is not the fact that he just did this. He did this as a passion and a dedication and a commitment and something that is a wonderful balance of life. Before we go into bicycling, I do want to ask you the question we ask you off the air. When you were hiking anywhere, anytime, did you ever get lost? Did you panic by getting lost? What did you do?
Bill, I've gotten lost in many places like that. Traveling overseas, I've been lost. I've been lost in the Smokies. And you eventually find your way out.
Just don't get lost in Murfreesboro.
I don't
Just see the town square and you just head north, south, east, or west.
You sit down, you figure out what you did wrong, where you can find your way back. Now, 50 years ago, we didn't have GPS that would tell us exactly where we were.
Or cell phones.
You had a compass and you had a map. You had to figure out where you were and how to get found again.
And you hoped that the map was accurate.
Well, I've been lost reading a map. Then I discovered I was reading the wrong map for where I was.
It's fascinating you mentioned that. I was just checking something on Google the other day for a location and to find a location in Fairview, and I was reading it upside down. And
helps.
literally, all the direction was heading north when I was figuring it was going from north to south, so we're making the wrong turns in the wrong places. Let's get to bicycling, and that was another major point, and you've been doing that up until very recently. How did you initially get into bicycling, and what were some of the experiences?
Well, bicycling is another sport. I'd gotten married to a beautiful lady who
agree.
loved hiking, who loved canoeing, who would climb mountains with me.
Isn't that how you courted her?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that how you courted Sydney?
We did, yeah, exactly. We found each other as a result of both enjoying canoeing, and then I invited her to go out west with me on a trip, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to," and climbed a 14,000-foot mountain for the first time. And anyhow, as you get a little bit older, you kind of not able maybe to do the many things that you would like to do. But Sydney and I found, that we could bicycle. And just 6 years ago, we made a beautiful trip from Bratislava in the Czech Republic to Budapest, the capital of Hungary, pedaling our bicycles along the beautiful brown Danube.
Not the blue Danube, but the brown Danube.
The brown Danube.
And you were at that point 87 years old.
I believe so, but oh well, so what?
Now, when you bicycle, and this sounds a little old-fashioned, did you ever bicycle for two?
Never. Well, we tried it. Sydney and I decided that bicycling for two, we're too individualistic. One wants to go one way and the other wants to go the other way. That doesn't work on a bicycle for two.
Please don't tell me the same problem was in canoeing with Sydney.
Oh, we've had some fun on that too. We have gone around rocks, one of us going one way and the other going the other way.
On the same canoe. So, in your bicycling, do you, again, as we had the same experience with hiking in our conversation, did you generally have an estimated amount of miles? Did you want to make miles again, or did you want to enjoy the scenery? For example, describe going along the canals in Holland.
This was one of the most beautiful trips we made. Short time after we were married, we simply went with a group called the Vermont Biking Tours, Vermont Biking Tours. And they set it up to where we took a lovely trip in Holland, biking and barging. We lived on a barge, but we had bicycles that were provided. We left from Amsterdam, were given a map, and told to be somewhere about 15 miles along the barge canal later on in the afternoon, And the barge would go along the canal. We would bicycle, and hopefully we would eat if we got to the barge. If we didn't get there, we were lost. Fortunately, we never got lost. We simply did as we were told, turned right when we were supposed to turn right, and found the barge in the evening.
Food is always an incentive to be at the
Yes.
right place at the right time.
But it is just a beautiful country to bicycle in, lovely. Everywhere you went, the people were wonderful, particularly the bicyclists.
And that's so true. As I was sharing with Dick on the way over here, probably one of the highlights my wife Barbara and I took, and it really cannot be considered bicycling because you have to go up the mountain before you go down. But when we were in Hawaii in the late 1990s in Maui, and if anybody does go to Maui, to Hawaii, this is the trip to take. A van picks you up at your hotel at 4 in the morning, or awfully early, takes you to a little town called Paia and feeds you with hot, high sugar items from donuts to sweet rolls and so forth to get your energy up. Drives you up in this van in pitch dark up this mountain road from sea level to 10,000 feet to the top of a volcano, Haleakala. And you get up there at sunrise. It's the most inspiring sunrise you will ever see in the highest point in the state of Hawaii. And you look out over miles, and then you hop on bikes 37 miles downhill with mega brakes, and you go from 10,000 feet down to sea level. They stop halfway for breakfast at the Maui Country Club. So I tell that to any bicyclists, and they say, that's not really biking. You've got to go up the mountain on a bike before you come down the mountain on a bike. Where were some of the more interesting places besides Holland that you rode bikes?
Well, we've ridden bikes in Switzerland, in Austria.
You went up mountains in Switzerland.
Oh no, we were stopping at a hotel near Zelmsee, and they had bicycles, and it was in a valley. So we've bicycled up the valley, back to the hotel in the evening. Many places in Switzerland are very lovely to bicycle. We bicycled around the Brisensee out of Interlaken. In fact, we got around halfway around the bicycling around in this Switzerland, got halfway around, discovered that it was late in the evening, had to take a ferry boat back to the town we were staying in.
In Tennessee, besides the Smokies, where have you been bicycling?
There are many lovely bike trails. There's a bike trail out of around Elizabeth in Tennessee.
Now, that's in eastern Tennessee, isn't it?
It is, up in the east. We bicycle around. Sydney we have a farm out in Williamson County. Wonderful bike trails all around there we can bike.
You might make a commercial. It's a camp also. It's not just the farm, and it's one of the most popular camps for children anywhere in Middle Tennessee. Give it a little plug for it.
Camp Whippoorwill for children. My wife started the camp 50 years ago.
Wow.
And we're both retired now, so we don't have to do much with it. But it is a wonderful little place to go to spend for the weekend anyhow.
Did you ever feel, and I never asked you this question, you've got a little lake out there at the camp. Did you ever feel like taking the kids in a canoe?
Oh, good heavens, yes. Yeah, many times. Yeah.
It's not a rapids. It's a little quiet pond.
There was no rapids on the lake.
Do you ever bicycle? Did you bicycle in the Smokies?
I have done that, but that is quite difficult. I've never tried to do that. That's really difficult to do.
Traffic besides. I mean, you get into, you're sharing the highway with tourists, and they may not have the respect or regard for bicyclists, and you're watching your safety.
I've done a lot more canoeing in the Smokies than I have bicycling in the Smokies.
Is there a kind of bike that you prefer in biking, that if you were advising somebody and they wanted to not necessarily be a big-time biker initially, but ultimately phase into biking as a great source of exercise and a great source of seeing the outdoors firsthand? Is there a particular type of bike?
Now, I'm not going to say that there is. I would go to a reputable bike shop. I would take the advice of a reputable bike manager. And both my wife and I bought bikes that were fitted exactly to us. Of course, we use bikes many times that, for many reasons, we couldn't take our bike to Europe. But we would use bikes in the U.S. that were fitted precisely to Sydney's posture and to mine.
I imagine the seat of the bike absolutely would make a huge difference.
The seat, the handlebars, everything, yes.
Now, we haven't talked about this, whether it was hiking, bicycling. You've been to Africa as well.
Oh, we've been to Africa 4 times.
Where in Africa?
Well, we've been to Morocco, we've been to South Africa, we've been to, we had a lovely, I hate to say it, but we were on the Zambezi River. We, just a few years ago, we took a raft trip on the Zambezi River beneath Victoria Falls. That is downriver of Victoria Falls. They're lovely places in Africa. Johannesburg.
Wonderful city. I've got to ask you as we are wrapping up, and you can tell I'm not certainly an expert. What is spelunking?
Spelunking.
Spelunking sounds like the beginning of a good song.
That is crawling around in caves, and that is another sport. That is
Tell me about spelunking.
Well,
you weren't wooing Sydney as your wife. Let's go spelunking.
I've never taken Sydney spelunking.
Tell us what it is and what you've done with it.
Spelunking is just simply putting on the oldest clothes you can possibly find, going into a cave. And when you go into a cave, you hope that you're going to be able to get out.
Do you put the yellow salt or a ribbon you carry so you follow it back out the exit?
Not that. I found a way to put a reflective tape that I would, as I were going into a cave that I was not familiar with, I would put a 1 inch by 1 inch piece of reflecting tape as I went in. Hopefully coming out, I would find that and take that reflecting tape out when I went out of the cave also.
Did you ever get lost in a cave?
I've been, let us say, turned around in the cave. I got turned around in Wet Cave. Wet Cave is under Sewanee.
Oh, okay.
The University of the South. And I think a waterfall in Wet Cave is directly under one of the playing fields of Sewanee.
Wow. Would you advise people to take that as one of their outdoor activities?
That is a sport that is, I think, acquired. I don't think you would do that unless you wanted to be cold and wet and in the dark, trying to get out of a cave, particularly when you take 3 sources of light with you, and 2 sources of light turn off and don't work, and you come out of Wet Cave with a candle burning.
Thank you, Dick Wooten, Bill Krause again. God be with you until we meet again.